I bought the cheapest brush pens I could find on Amazon, and today I'm going to review them. Let's see if they're worth the money. I initially wanted some Tombow brush pens, but you guys know how expensive Tombows are. So here's my brush pen review. Hey people, I'm Temi if you're new here. So yeah, let's go with the pens. I bought the set of 72 colours. It was just over £16, which is around $20, and that comes to under 30 cents per pen. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen pens this cheap ever. And you can kind of tell they're cheap, like the packaging just isn't very rigid at all. It comes in these 3 rows, which I'm quite happy with, and I'm also quite happy with the colour range, so let's see. I'll be doing the testing today in this Archer and Olive dotted notebook. This is from their Pride collection and it's this pretty notebook. I don't know if it's still in stock, but I'll link to their notebooks down below. The Archer and Olive notebooks are 160 GSM, which is thick paper. That's how thick I like my bullet journal notebooks, but if you use thinner paper, then you might get different results. By the way, all the supplies I used are linked down below. Here's what the pen looks like. I can't even give you a brand name because it doesn't say anything. So these are dual brush pens. One side is the thick brush marker and the other side is a fine liner tip. So this is different to the Tombow pen and I'm going to show you them side by side in just a second. The barrel doesn't really say anything else on it apart from telling you which side is which. Unfortunately, there are no color numbers or color names, which I would have really liked. But here it is side by side to the Tombow. The Tombow is much longer in the overall barrel length, but the brush nib on the Tombow is also slightly longer, so I wonder if that makes a difference. Later on in the video, I will be showing side-by-side comparison using the Tombow. From the fine tip end of the Tombow is a lot thicker. This one's a fine liner, but the Tombow is a lot thicker. Now for the swatches, so excuse my very bad calligraphy. I'm still a beginner, guys. As I mentioned, there are no names, so I just swatched it based on what color I thought it was and then just a number next to it. So you're going to see a lot of colors that don't necessarily match a real life color. For example, that was very pink, but it's purple number 3. Some of the colors are quite similar and they didn't always match the cap. So it was a little bit interesting trying to group these colors, as I said. For example, that was very much blue, not purple 8, but you know. But overall, I'm quite happy with the range of colours and I can't wait to use these in my bullet journal. I will have to come up with some sort of a labelling system though, because as I said, not all of them actually match the cap, so that I know which colour I'm actually picking up. It'll be good to have some sort of numbering or some sort of label, and please let me know if you have suggestions for the labelling system, that would be great. Most of the nibs seemed fine, but with this particular blue one, it has this black, it just looks disgusting to me. Luckily, I can still use the other part of the brush pen, but that was just very disgusting. And it was the same with this other blue one. And this is such a pretty blue, but it had that same like black patch. Again, if I use the other side of the pen, then it's fine. Those were the only 2 that I thought were quite bad for the brush nib. Some others felt frayed already, which also wasn't ideal, but for the most part, they felt fine. And then the last issue I had was with the black felt tip. So the brush pen for that side was fine, but the felt tip side was just patchy and it was like there's no ink in there, basically. Now for the Tombow comparison. So I thought it would be great to compare these very cheap brush pens to the super popular Tombows because I'm also curious to see how different they perform. I only have about 6 Tombows. It's a grey set, so I'm not comparing the vibrancy of colours, I'm just comparing how well they write or how well they work. So I wrote hello with the cheaper brush pens, and then I wrote with the Tombow pen. Ignore my beginner level calligraphy skills. From first impressions, using both of them side by side, I think they work very similarly. I don't really see much of a difference at the moment, but I'm going to do some more side-by-side comparisons so that we can really get to the bottom of it. So I did this simple test to test the up and down strokes, and you can see for both of them you can get a very thick downstroke and a very thin upstroke, so I think they worked about the same. Next we've got the fine liner side or the fine point test, and as I mentioned before, the fine point on the Tombow is slightly thicker than the dupe side. I would have preferred if the dupe had a fine point like the Tombows, but that's just personal preference. Next, I've just done this spread of color, and it's more to see how it layers over itself, so if it leaves like streaky marks, and again, they look about the same to me. Second part of this test was to see how well other pens layer over the top. So I've got my favorite calligraphy pen ever. It's a Sepa Japanese material pen. It layers pretty well for both sides. I can't really see too much of a difference. And then I tried with my white pen, which is the Sakura Jelly Roll. And I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but the Sakura Jelly Roll seems to layer better on the Tombow side. So on the dupe side, it almost feels a little bit see-through, but on the Tombow side, it feels a little bit more opaque. So that might have something to do with the color choices. But from what I can see over here, the white pen layers better on Tombow than on the dupe side. Then I decided to do a test to see how thin I can get the lines for the brush pen side. I actually found it harder to get a very thin line on the dupe side. So you can see that on the Tombow side, it can get to a much thinner point with the brush pen in comparison to the dupe. But on the dupe side, it seems like it can get much thicker in the final stroke. The final test I'm doing is a blend test. So trying to see if I can get a nice gradient with just some calligraphy effects. So I just wrote blend with the Tombow side, and I used different shades of grey, and you can see that it forms a really nice blend. And then I did the same thing for the dupe side, and I just used a few reds, and you can see that it also forms a really nice blend. So I think they both aced this blend test. I might even say it's better on the dupe side. But again, it might be the colours I'm using like influencing my thoughts, you know? So for my final thoughts, I am very impressed with this cheap brush pen set. I'm so excited to use them in my bullet journal. I think it'll be interesting to see how they layer over different types of paper, so like over craft paper, over black paper. I think the colour range is great. 72 pens at 30 cents each, I am not mad at that. Although there were the two blues that had the nib a bit damaged, I would say, I'm still not mad at it because I think it's got a good colour range and I'm excited to use these. I don't know about you guys. The other bad thing was then the black fine liner side, but luckily I've got so many black fine liners. In fact, I use the Staedtler fine liner for my daily bullet journaling, so I'm not mad at that. Do I think these pens are worth it? I think they are so affordable, and for the fact that you can make a similar effect to the Tombow pens, I think they're a great purchase. I'll link them down below if you guys are interested in trying them as well. And let me know what you think down in the comments. Would you try these pens? So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Goodbye.